The way she looked at me made my heart race. Not because it was flirtatious, not even because it lingered too long, but because it felt like she saw something I hadn't said out loud yet. I didn't expect that to happen on a Tuesday afternoon, especially not at the repair shop. I'd only been working there 3 months. Long enough to know which coffee went cold on the counter, which radio station crackled after noon, which customers talked because they were lonely, and which ones talked because silence scared them. She walked in somewhere between all that, between the hum of the lift and the smell of oil, carrying a canvas tote and a patience that felt practiced. Her car wouldn't start. She explained it calmly, like she'd already made peace with inconvenience. Mid-40s, maybe older, hair pulled back, but not tightly, like she didn't feel the need to prove anything. She wore a faded navy coat, even though it wasn't cold, and when she spoke, she didn't rush. People who rush usually want something. She didn't seem to. I told her I'd take a look. My voice cracked just enough that I hated myself for it. While I worked, she stood closer than most customers did, watching without hovering. I felt her presence the way you feel someone behind you in a quiet room. Not threatening, just aware. When I reached for a wrench, our hands brushed. Not dramatically, barely anything. Still, I pulled back too fast, knocking my elbow against the hood. "Sorry," I said, even though it wasn't clear for what. She smiled, small and sideways. "You okay?" That was the first moment. The pause after the question. The way she waited for the answer instead of filling the space. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah. Just yeah." She nodded, like she believed me without needing proof. While the engine cooled, we stood there. The radio cut out for a few seconds, leaving the shop unusually quiet. I asked her about the car. She told me it used to belong to her sister. There was something careful in how she said it, like a door she opened just enough to let air through. When I quoted the repair cost, she didn't flinch. Just exhaled, slow, then laughed under her breath. "Figures," she said. "Nothing ever breaks at a convenient time." I said something about life being like that. It came out more earnest than I meant it to. She tilted her head slightly, studying me. Not my uniform, not my hands, me. That was when it happened. That look. Curious, measuring, almost gentle. Not a smile. Not neutral either. Something in between that landed right in my chest. She paid at the counter, but didn't leave right away. Pretended to check her phone. I wiped my hands on a rag I'd already used too much. Neither of us said anything for a beat too long. "Thanks," she said finally, "for explaining things. Most people don't." I shrugged. "It helps to know what's happening." "Does it?" she asked lightly. I didn't answer in time. She picked up her tote, walked toward the door, then stopped. Turned back. "I'm Claire," she said. I told her my name. She repeated it once, quietly, like she was testing how it sounded. Then she left. That night, lying in bed, I kept seeing it. Not her smile, not her body, not anything obvious. Just the way she looked at me, like there was a question she hadn't asked yet, and somehow expected me to remember. She came back the following week, and I pretended not to be surprised. Her car was running fine this time. She didn't need anything fixed. She said she was in the area. Said it like it meant nothing. I nodded like it meant nothing too. Still, my hands went unsteady when I saw her standing by the counter. Coat folded over her arm. Eyes scanning the shop, like she was looking for something she might have misplaced. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said quickly. Too quickly. Then softer. "I just had a question." She asked about a noise she'd heard once, days ago, already gone. I listened anyway. Asked follow-ups. We stood near the open bay, the late afternoon light cutting in low and dusty. She kept her arms crossed, fingers tucked under her elbows, like she was holding herself together without realizing it. I noticed her hands first. A thin scar across one knuckle. Nails short, clean, no polish. When she laughed, a small, almost embarrassed sound. She brought one hand up to her mouth like she was apologizing for taking up space. "You don't have to worry," I said. "Sounds normal." She nodded, relief flickering across her face before she could stop it. Then she exhaled and leaned back against the counter, eyes closing for half a second too long. "Sorry," she said. "It's been a long week." I didn't ask why, just waited. She opened her eyes again and looked at me, not like before. This time it was tired. stripped down, like she'd forgotten to put something back on. My sister used to handle all this stuff, she said suddenly. Cars, calls, anything that required dealing. She gestured vaguely. She passed a few years ago. I'm still catching up. Oh, I said. It felt like the wrong word, but it was all I had. She waved it off immediately. I'm fine. I didn't mean to. She stopped herself. Straightened. The wall went back up so fast, I almost missed the moment it had fallen. I told her about a customer who'd come in earlier with a worse problem than hers. Tried to make it lighter. She listened, really listened, eyes on my face instead of the floor. When I finished, she smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. You're good at this, she said. At fixing cars. At making things feel less heavy. The radio crackled again. Someone shouted from the back. The world rushed in where it had been quiet. She checked her watch. I should go, right? I said, even though I didn't want her to. She hesitated, just for a second. Looked at the door. Then back at me. Thank you, she said. Not for the car. For something else. I could feel it. As she walked away, she reached out. Not fully, and her fingers brushed my sleeve. Maybe by accident. Maybe not. She didn't turn around. But I stood there long after she left, feeling the exact place where she almost hadn't touched me at all. It happened later than it should have. The shop was supposed to close at 6, but a storm rolled in hard and fast, the kind that turns the sky gray in minutes and makes you reconsider every plan you had. She showed up right as I was locking the door, rain already soaking through her hair, coat darker at the shoulders. I know you're closed, she said, breathless. It stalled. Again. I let her in without thinking. The power flickered once while I checked the battery. Thunder sat low and constant, like something breathing outside. She stayed near the doorway at first, then drifted closer as the rain got louder. I could feel the space between us shrinking without either of us stepping forward. You don't have to stay, I said. I can call you a tow. She shook her head. No, it's fine. I don't mind. That wasn't what she meant. While I worked, she talked. Not much. Little pieces. Her job at a nonprofit. How she'd picked it because it felt useful. How she hated driving in storms. How she used to let other people decide things for her and was trying not to anymore. Each sentence felt like it had been rehearsed alone before being said out loud. At one point the lights went out completely. Just for a second. Long enough that everything went quiet except the rain and our breathing. She laughed softly. Of course. I found a flashlight, angled it up. The light caught her face in a way that felt too intimate. The lines near her eyes, the tiredness she never quite hid. She was closer now. Close enough that if I moved my arm, I'd touch her. You ever feel like you're behind? She asked suddenly. I froze. Behind what? She shrugged. Everyone else. I didn't answer right away. My chest felt tight, like the truth was pressing up against my ribs. Yeah, I said finally. All the time. She looked at me then. Really looked. The storm filled the silence for us. Her phone rang. She glanced down at the screen and stiffened. Didn't answer it. It rang again. Then stopped. A few seconds later, a text buzzed through. Her jaw tightened like she was biting something back. You don't have to. I started. I know, she said quickly. Too quickly. It's just history. The lights came back on. The moment shifted, like someone had opened a window. I finished the fix faster than I needed to. When I straightened up, she was standing right there. Too close now to pretend it was nothing. I could smell rain on her coat, something warm underneath. Thank you, she said. Her voice dropped. For staying. I nodded. My hands were dirty. I didn't know where to put them. She hesitated, then reached up, slow, uncertain, and brushed something imaginary from my cheek. Her fingers hovered there, barely touching skin. For half a second, neither of us moved. Then a car pulled into the lot, headlights cutting across us, and she pulled her hand back like she'd been burned. I should go, she said. I watched her walk out into the rain, my body still leaning toward the place she'd almost stayed. She didn't come back for 2 weeks. I told myself that meant something obvious. That whatever this was had scared her off, or that it had never been anything at all. Still, every time the bell over the shop door rang, my chest tightened before I could stop it. Then one evening, near closing, she was there. No car. No coat. Just her, standing inside the doorway like she'd been holding her breath the whole way in. "Hey," I said. It came out careful. "Hey." She didn't move. We stood there longer than necessary. The shop felt too clean, too quiet, like it was listening. "I didn't want to just disappear," she said finally. "I'm not good at pretending things don't matter." I nodded. My hands were clenched at my sides. "Neither am I." She walked in slowly, stopping a few feet away. Close enough that the space between us felt intentional now. She looked tired. Not the usual kind. Something heavier, settled. "I keep thinking about that night," she said. Not in a dramatic way. Just, she exhaled. It made something loud in my head. And I don't like that. "What did it make loud?" I asked. She looked at me for a long moment, eyes searching my face like she was checking for permission. The part of me that's supposed to know better. The words hit harder than anything physical could have. "I don't want to cross a line," she continued. "I don't even know where the line is anymore. I just know I feel off balance. And I hate that it's because of you." I swallowed. "I never meant to." "I know," she said quickly. "That's the problem." Silence settled between us, thick and fragile. The radio was off. The lights hummed faintly overhead. I could hear my own breathing, too loud. "I should stop coming here," she said, barely above a whisper. Something in my chest twisted. "Is that what you want?" She shook her head once. Small. Defeated. No, the honesty in that almost broke me. I took a step closer, then stopped. My body knew what it wanted. Everything else told me to stay still. "Then what are we doing?" I asked. She laughed quietly, but there was no humor in it. Her eyes were wet now, though no tears fell. "That's what scares me." She looked down at her hands, twisting together like she was holding herself in place. When she looked back up, her voice was steady again, but thinner. "I don't trust myself around you," she said. And then, softer, like she hadn't meant to say it at all, "I don't know how to want something without ruining it." The shift came quietly. No warning. No raised voices or slammed doors. It was a Tuesday morning, slow enough that the shop felt hollow. I was restocking filters when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. No text, just a voicemail attachment. I almost ignored it. Her voice came through low and unsure, like she hadn't meant for anyone else to hear it. "Hey, I'm sorry if this is strange. I think I gave you the wrong number last time. This is Claire." She paused. I could hear fabric moving, maybe her sitting down. "You don't have to call back. I just needed to say something out loud, and you were the only person who came to mind." The message ended there. I stood frozen between shelves, heart pounding like I'd been caught doing something wrong. She came in that afternoon, eyes flicking to me and then away. I waited until the place was empty before mentioning it. Didn't play it. Just said, "You left me a voicemail." Her face drained of color. "Oh, I didn't listen to it all." I lied. Or maybe I hadn't listened enough. She closed her eyes for a second, the way people do before stepping into cold water. "I shouldn't have done that." "It's okay," I said quickly. "I just wanted to make sure you were." "I'm not," she interrupted. Then stopped herself. Breathed. I'm fine. I'm just off lately." She reached into her tote and pulled out a folded photo, worn at the edges. She held it between us, not offering it, just letting it exist. "That's my sister," she said. "And her husband." Before everything went bad. The man in the picture was younger than I expected. Dark hair. Same slouch I had when I wasn't paying attention. Something in my stomach dropped. "You remind me of him," she said quietly. "Not how you look, just how you listen. The way you don't rush to fix things." I didn't know what to say to that. It felt too big to touch. "I lost her," she continued. "Then I lost him. In different ways, but close enough that my brain doesn't separate them anymore." She folded the photo back up carefully. "So when I'm around you, something in me gets confused, like it's reaching for something that isn't there anymore." The shop felt smaller, the air heavier. "I don't want you to feel responsible for that," she said. "You didn't do anything wrong." "I know," I said, but my voice shook anyway. She nodded, eyes fixed on the counter. "I should go." She turned, then hesitated, looked back at me once, the same way she had that first day, like she was noticing something she couldn't unsee. "For what it's worth," she said, "you didn't replace anything." Then she left. I stood there long after, Realizing the weight in my chest wasn't desire or fear. It was the quiet understanding that whatever she was reaching for, she'd reached me instead. She didn't avoid me after that. She just changed the way she moved around me, like someone adjusting their footing on uncertain ground. She came in one evening near closing. Rain again, lighter this time, more patient. No emergency, no excuse. Just her, damp hair tucked behind one ear, holding 2 coffees like a peace offering. "I didn't know what you drink," she said. "So I guessed. I took one. It was wrong. Too sweet. I drank it anyway." We sat on the low bench near the back, shoulders not touching but close enough to feel the heat. The shop lights were dimmed, the day winding down around us. Outside, the rain tapped the windows in a steady rhythm that made conversation feel optional. "I don't want to keep pretending this is nothing," she said after a while. "No drama. Just fact." "Me neither." She nodded, looked down at her cup. "But I also don't want it to be something that hurts you. Or me. Or anyone else." "I know," I said, and I meant it in all the complicated ways. Silence settled again, not awkward this time. Honest. She shifted slightly, knees angling toward mine, then stopped herself halfway, caught the movement, smiled at it, almost sadly. "I forget sometimes," she said, "that wanting something doesn't mean you get to take it." I watched her hands, the way her thumb worried the cardboard sleeve, the faint tremor she tried to hide by stilling it against her leg. "I don't feel taken," I said quietly. "I feel chosen, even when you pull back." That made her inhale sharply. She looked at me then, really looked, eyes soft and tired and clear all at once. "You shouldn't," she said. "That's not fair." "Maybe," I said, "but it's true." She didn't argue, just leaned back, letting the bench creak under her weight. Her shoulder brushed mine, accidental at first. Then it stayed. Neither of us moved. After a minute, she reached out. Slow, careful. Her fingers touched the back of my hand, barely there, like she was testing whether the ground would hold. I didn't close my hand around hers. Didn't pull away either. We stayed like that, contact light but unmistakable. Her forehead tipped forward until it rested against my shoulder. Not dramatic, not urgent, just tired. "Let's not rush," she said, voice muffled. "Or run." "Okay," I said. "And if this stops making sense," she added, "we say it out loud." "Okay." We sat there until the coffee went cold and the rain moved on, until the shop felt like it belonged to us instead of the world. When she finally stood to leave, she squeezed my hand once, grounding, intentional, and let go. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't have to. I'm telling this from a quieter place now. Not because everything resolved into something neat, but because I learned how to sit with what didn't. Claire is still in my life, not in the way stories usually rush toward. There was no sudden leap, no moment where everything clicked into permanence. What changed wasn't the label, it was the pace, the honesty, the way we stopped pretending we didn't feel the pull and started respecting it instead. We kept talking, sometimes at the shop after hours, sometimes on long walks where neither of us knew exactly where we were headed. There were pauses that used to scare me. Now they just existed. She still pulled back sometimes. I still noticed. But instead of guessing, we named it. Quietly, without blame. She told me once that what frightened her wasn't the age difference or the history or the possibility of loss. "It's how easy it feels," she said. "That's what I don't trust." I understood that more than I wanted to. I changed too. I stopped mistaking intensity for depth. Stopped thinking that wanting meant needing to act. I learned that restraint isn't absence, it's choice. That being seen doesn't always come with being taken. There were nights we sat side by side on her couch, knees touching, watching something neither of us cared about. Times my hand rested on the back of hers, still, not claiming. Moments when she leaned into me like she was finally letting herself rest without explanation. And sometimes, she'd look at me the way she did that first day, like she was still surprised by what she noticed. We didn't save each other. We didn't fix old wounds or erase grief. But we stopped running from the places where things hurt. We learned how to be careful without being distant, how to want without consuming, how to let something grow without forcing it into a shape it wasn't ready for. I don't know what this will be a year from now, or 5. I know only that when she reaches for my hand now, She doesn't hesitate. And when I look back at her, I don't wonder if I imagined it. The way she looks at me still makes my heart race. Not because it's forbidden, or fragile, or fleeting, but because it's honest. And sometimes, that's the bravest kind of love there is. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?